Hi there, it's Sharon Waxman, the editor-in-chief of TheWrap, coming to you from our Toronto studio at the Film Festival in Toronto with the legendary Tilda Swinton, who I'm delighted to welcome back to our studio. We've gotten to interview you many times in the past. You've graced the cover of our magazine in the past, and your new film here at the festival is called The Room Next Door, another beautiful performance in which you are someone who is choosing with a fatal illness to choose the time of your death and the circumstance of your death. And Julianne Moore, who we wish was here, who is here in spirit, who we adore, is the friend who you reconnect with and who's helping you on this journey. It's a beautiful story. You never pick easy stories, Tilda. You always are drawn somehow to the really challenging material.
Feels easy to me, Sharon. I don't know. It feels really delicious to kind of fold into a story that's actually in our lives anyway. I mean, it's no effort, in a way, to be this honest. I mean, I'm in a position where, and I'm blessed to be able to say this, I've been in the position that Julianne's character is in quite often in my life, more and more often.
Quite often?
Yeah.
More than once?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, life, you know. And quite early, I would say, quite early in my 30s, a number of very close friends. I mean, I always say the person that I play in the film is called Martha. And Julianne, I'm referring to her here.
We'll just
and she's
speak
nodding.
to her
She's
in
nodding. She's
absentia.
nodding. She's just taking a little rest at the moment. The character that she plays is called Ingrid. I've been in the Ingrid position quite a lot. And from when I was very young, my friend Derek Jarman, I would say, was my Martha. He was the first person that I kind of witnessed at this sort of juncture in his life. But this is a particular story because Martha, who I play, is someone who's very clear that she hasn't got that long and she's really going towards something very, very agonizing. And she decides to be self-determined to the end. And she knows she doesn't want to do it alone. She asks her old friend to sort of be in the room next door, sort of be her witness.
It's a very beautifully told story, and I think that many of us imagine, like, what would we do who if we were faced with really terrible choices like that. And I also know people who have made that choice to leave at the time and in the circumstance of their own choosing rather than wait for suffering and in uncertainty. Did you draw on these experiences that you've had, as you say, with friends in the past to sort of to drive your performance?
It only occurred to me a couple of days ago that I had. I hadn't realized when we were shooting the film that I was drawing on the example of particularly my friend Derek Jarman, who, as I say, was the first person who asked me to be his Ingrid. But his attitude, the way in which he faced his dying, you know, none of us can really face our death because death is death, but our dying, the way we live as we're departing, that we can have some hand in. And the way he faced it and his absolute clear-eyedness about it was really inspiring, I realize. And as I say, I only sort of remembered a couple of days ago he was a model to me in my playing of Martha, but also in the forming of my own attitude to... And in imagining, you know, when we play these people, we're thinking, as you say, what would I do in this situation? I feel that I might, never say never, but I might make very similar choices to the choices that Martha makes and have a very similar attitude to hers.
Can you share at all what it was like helping your friend Derek Jarman exit the life? I mean, how old was he? Was at the time sure it was illegal?
I didn't know. To be clear, he wasn't taking his own life. He was dying of AIDS in the years between 1989 when he was HIV positive, and these of course were the years when the drugs had not evolved, and so at that point it did really feel for many people that an HIV diagnosis did mean a very short journey to the end. And it was with him. He was diagnosed in 1989. He died in 94, and the end was really pretty tortuous. He didn't have the power, and he didn't make the decision to end his own life. But his dying and the way he faced his dying. I mean, when he lost his sight, his response was to make a film called Blue, which is actually an acknowledged masterpiece, which is a blue screen. This was the way he drove into the curve of it, and I think that the person that I have the privilege of playing in this film would have made the similar, if she'd had the energy, would have made a similar sort of effort. So that's what I learned.
To create art.
To just keep living.
Keep going.
To
yes.
keep living and to be lively, because what we're talking about are people, I mean, in the case of both Derek and Martha, they want to live. It's not that they're suicidal. They want to live, but they need to live with health and with strength and with self-determination. And if they feel that that's just running out, then in Martha's case, she decides to do the only self-determining thing she can do, which is to dismount.
I mean, I think that the word that keeps coming back to me is dignity, is human dignity, and what we allow other people, even as they are becoming weaker and more diminished and less able to take care of themselves. That how are we able to preserve dignity?
Absolutely. That's exactly the right way of putting it, I think, Sharon. Death with dignity, that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about euthanasia. We're not talking about suicide. We're talking about, and we're certainly not talking about being a victim of anything. We're talking about keeping our life in our own hands and making the decisions which mean that we retain that dignity. And then in the position of those of us who are witness, to have the respect of honoring that dignity and just keeping someone company and bearing witness to whatever they want.
Did you talk to Julie? She's not here. To
Julianne,
yes.
She's always here.
How did you two interact, in preparing for your scenes together? It is some wonderful interaction, and it must be, I have to think, a pleasure for the both of you to work together.
An enormous pleasure. And the miracle for us was that even though we're playing friends of 30, 40 years, even though Julie and I could have been friends for 30, 40 years, we had never really met before. We'd met a couple of times in scenarios like this, actually, in corridors.
You've not acted together?
No. We'd spent maybe 20 minutes in each other's company before this. Oh, my. But the second we were brought together by this film, we felt absolutely as if we could have been friends for 40 years. And we drew on that. We drew on our natural affection for each other, and also we're exactly the same age pretty much, and so we have all the references. We could easily be those two women. What we drew on, as usual, was our imagination. What for her, what would you do in this scenario if somebody called you up and asked you to do this? And for me, what would you do in this situation? Who would you call, and why would you call, and who would you choose? We just wung it in the way that these women are winging it, and so it felt very lively and very spontaneous and very, very fresh to us, the whole scenario.
Yeah, two beautiful performances. Such a pleasure to have you here. The film is The Room Next Door. It will be out in theaters.
Yes.
And I encourage everyone to go see it. Tilda Swinton, thank you so much for joining us.
So lovely to see you again.